Imagine standing in a room right now. What you're looking at isn't actually there. At least, not the way you think it is. The colors surrounding you, they're a lie your brain tells you. A beautiful, necessary lie. Here's something that's going to shatter your perception of reality. You've never seen the color red. You've never seen blue. You've never seen any color at all. What you've experienced is your brain's interpretation of electromagnetic radiation, filtered 3 types of cells in your eyes, creating a limited simulation of a universe bursting with colors so incomprehensible that trying to imagine them is like a blind person trying to imagine sight itself. But here's where it gets absolutely mind-bending. Mantis shrimp have 16 types of color receptors. 16. You have 3. They're swimming through an ocean painted in colors that, to them, are as normal as red is to you, but to us. Those colors don't just look different. They literally cannot exist in our conscious experience. It's not that we can't see them clearly, like trying to see in dim light. It's that the very neural architecture of our brain has no mechanism to create them. They are colors that are impossible for human consciousness. What if I told you that right now, as you watch this video, you're surrounded by millions of colors you'll never experience? That butterflies see colors you can't imagine? That the UV patterns on flowers, the secret maps that guide bees to nectar exist in a spectrum your eyes will never translate? That some birds navigate using colors that, to them, make the rainbow look like a child's crude sketch? Today, we're going on a journey into one of the most profound questions in neuroscience, biology and philosophy. Could there be colors humans will never experience? The answer is going to change how you literally see everything around you. But before we dive into this reality-breaking journey, I need you to do something. If you're ready to have your mind completely rewired about something as fundamental as color, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what we're about to explore will make you question whether you've ever truly seen the world at all. And drop a comment right now telling me, what country are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? I want to know where in the world people are having their minds blown by invisible colors. Are you in Brazil at midnight, unable to sleep? Tokyo during your morning commute? London on a rainy afternoon? Let's create a global moment of shared wonder. Now, let's begin. To understand colors you'll never see, we first need to destroy everything you think you know about the colors you can see. When you look at a red apple, what's actually happening? Here's what most people think. Light hits the apple. The apple is red. The red light enters your eye, and you see red. Simple, right? Wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong. Here's the truth. That apple isn't red. Redness doesn't exist out there in the world. The apple is absorbing every wavelength of light, except for wavelengths around 700 nanometers, which it reflects. Those photons, which have no color, no redness, nothing but a wavelength, enter your eye and hit 3 types of cone cells. These cones don't see color either. They just respond more or less strongly to different wavelengths. The red cone responds strongly to that 700 nanometer light. The signal travels through your optic nerve as electrical impulses still, no color into your visual cortex, where billions of neurons fire in a specific pattern, and somehow, mysteriously, you experience redness. Color is what philosophers call qualia, the subjective, conscious experience of something. The redness of red exists only in your mind. It's not a property of light. It's not a property of the apple. It's a property of your consciousness. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to describe the color red to someone who's been blind from birth. You can't do it. You can say, it's the color of fire, or it's warm and passionate, but you're not communicating the actual experience of redness. That experience, that quality exists only for those who have the neural machinery to create it. Now here's where this gets profound. If color is created by your brain, and different brains create different experiences, then the red you see might not be the same red I see. We've both learned to call the same wavelength red, but your internal experience of that redness could be completely different from mine. This isn't just philosophical speculation. It's a serious question in neuroscience called a problem of qualia. But let's ground this in hard science. In 1802, Thomas Young, an English physicist, proposed that human color vision works through 3 types of color receptors. 50 years later, Hermann von Helmholtz expanded this into what we now call the Young-Helmholtz theory of trichromatic color vision. They were right. We have 3 types of cone cells. S cones that respond most to short wavelengths around 420 nanometers. M cones that respond to medium wavelengths around 530 nanometers. And L cones that respond to long wavelengths around 560 nanometers. Blue, green, and red. 3 colors. That's it. That's your entire palette. Every color you've ever seen. The magenta of a sunset, the turquoise of a tropical ocean, the gold of autumn leaves is created by your brain, combining signals from just these 3 types of cells. It's like having only 3 primary colors of paint, but mixing them to create millions of shades. Except it's not really like that, because paint mixing is a physical process. What your brain does is create entirely new subjective experiences from neural patterns. Here's an experiment you can try right now. Close your eyes and press gently on your eyelids. See those swirling patterns of color? Those are called phosphenes. There's no light entering your eyes, but you're experiencing color anyway, because you're mechanically stimulating your retinal cells. This proves that color isn't out there. It's created by your neural activity. But now, here's where we start to break reality. If 3 types of cones create the millions of colors you can see, what would 4 types create? Or 5? Or 16? The answer isn't just more colors. It's colors that are fundamentally, impossibly, incomprehensibly different from anything in your experience. Colors that don't fit into any space in your color perception. Colors that would require entirely new dimensions of consciousness. And those colors exist. They're real. They're all around you right now. You're just blind to them. Let me show you the universe you've never seen. The electromagnetic spectrum stretches from radio waves a kilometer long to gamma rays smaller than an atom. Somewhere in that vast spectrum, between roughly 380 and 700 nanometers, there's a tiny sliver, less than 1% of the total spectrum, that your eyes can detect. That's visible light. That's your entire visual universe. But let's zoom in on just that visible spectrum. Even within those wavelengths you can technically detect, you're missing most of what's there. In 1994, Gabrielle Jordan, a neuroscientist at Newcastle University, made a discovery that should have shattered everything we thought we knew about human color vision. She found women, actual living women, who had 4 types of functioning cone cells instead of 3. They were tetrachromats. They could see colors that were invisible to everyone else. One woman, known as CDA29 to protect her privacy, could distinguish colors that looked identical to normal people. Show her 2 patches of color that every normal trichromat would swear were the same, and she could instantly tell them apart. It wasn't that she could see them more clearly. She could see colors that, to her, were as different as red and blue are to you. But that looked identical to everyone else, because they existed in the 4th dimension of her color space. Think about that. This woman walks through the same world as you, but she experiences colors you cannot even imagine. When she looks at a rainbow, she sees bands of color where you see smooth transitions. When she looks at your face, she sees hues and shades that make you look like a completely different person than what you see in the mirror. Her subjective visual experience is fundamentally alien to yours. But here's what will really blow your mind. We can estimate what she's experiencing. Normal humans can distinguish about 1 million different colors. Jordan estimated that tetrachromats can distinguish about 100 million colors. 100 million colors, 99 million of which don't exist in your conscious experience. And she's still human. She only has 4 types of cones. Now let's talk about the mantis shrimp. The mantis shrimp specifically, Odontodactylus ciliaris, has 16 types of photoreceptor cells. 16. When neuroscientist Roy Caldwell at UC Berkeley began studying these creatures in the 1980s, he initially didn't believe his own findings. It seemed impossible. Why would any creature need 16 color channels? Here's what blew scientists' minds. The mantis shrimp doesn't just see more colors. It processes color in a completely different way. Humans compare signals from 3 cones to determine color. Mantis shrimp don't compare. Each photoreceptor type recognizes a specific wavelength, and they process colors independently and in parallel. It's like the difference between a sophisticated mixing board and 100 separate radios, each tuned to its own frequency. They can see ultraviolet light. They can see polarized light, the orientation of light waves, as distinct colors. They can see combinations of wavelengths that humans can't even measure with our equipment, because we don't have the conceptual framework for colors that exist in 16-dimensional space. When a mantis shrimp looks at a coral reef, it's not seeing a more detailed version of what you see. It's experiencing something so radically different that the gap between your vision and a mantis shrimp's vision is bigger than the gap between blindness and sight. But let's bring this back to something more relatable. Birds. Many birds have 4 types of cones, including one that responds to ultraviolet light. When a male peacock displays his feathers to a female, he's not just showing off the blues and greens you see. He's displaying elaborate UV patterns that, to the female peacock, are as obvious and important as the visible patterns are to you. You're seeing half the display. The other half exists in colors you cannot experience. Flowers have evolved UV patterns specifically to guide pollinators to nectar. These patterns, invisible to you, create landing strips and target symbols that bees follow like runway lights. The flowers you think are solid yellow? To a bee, they're intricate UV paintings with colors that have no names in human language because we've never experienced them. In 2007, Almut Kelber at Lund University in Sweden proved that the visual systems of nocturnal hawkmoths allow them to see color in conditions humans would consider total darkness. They have colors for nighttime that we don't have for daytime. When they feed on night-blooming flowers, they're navigating through a world of colors that emerge only in darkness. Colors that, to them, are as vivid as daylight colors are to us. You're surrounded by an invisible rainbow. The flowers in your garden, the birds in your sky, the insects on your window. They're all painted in colors you'll never see, having visual experiences you'll never have, living in a fuller version of reality than you can access. And here's the truly humbling part. This isn't about having bad eyes. You could have the most perfect human vision possible, and you'd still be colorblind compared to these creatures. The limitation isn't in your eyes, it's in the fundamental architecture of your brain. Now we need to go deeper into your brain to understand why some colors are literally impossible for you to experience. Your visual cortex, the part of your brain that processes vision, contains something called color opponent channels. These were discovered in the 1950s by Ewald Hering, and they're crucial to understanding why certain colors can't exist in your experience. Here's how it works. Your brain doesn't process the raw signals from your 3 cone types. Instead, it creates 3 opponent channels: red-green, blue-yellow, and black-white. The red-green channel can signal either red or green, but not both simultaneously. The blue-yellow channel can signal either blue or yellow, but not both simultaneously. This is why you can imagine reddish-blue that's purple. You can imagine reddish-yellow, that's orange. But can you imagine reddish-green? Not greenish with a tint of red, but simultaneously fully red and fully green? You can't. It's not that the color is too complex to imagine. It's that your neural architecture makes it impossible. The same neurons that signal red inhibit the neurons that signal green. They can't both fire at full strength simultaneously. Reddish-green doesn't just not exist. It can't exist in human consciousness. But here's where scientists started to break reality. What if we could hack those neural channels? In 1983, Hewitt Crane and Thomas Piantanida, vision researchers at Stanford Research Institute, conducted an experiment that sounds like science fiction. They used an optical system to perfectly stabilize images on the retina, preventing eye movements. Then they showed subjects two colors, red and green, in perfect alignment, one to each eye. What happened next violated everything we thought we knew about color perception. Some subjects reported seeing impossible colors. Colors that were simultaneously red and green in a way that wasn't yellow, wasn't brown, wasn't any normal color. They described it as unsettling, strange, wrong. They were experiencing colors that shouldn't exist in human consciousness, forced into existence by the experimental setup. The experiment was difficult to replicate. It required precise equipment and specific conditions, but when it worked, it proved something profound. The space of possible colors is bigger than the space of normal colors. There are colors that your visual system can create, but normally doesn't, suppressed by the architecture of color opponent processing. Let me explain why this matters. Think of your color space like a three-dimensional volume. Every color you can see exists somewhere in this volume. Red is in one corner, green in another, blue in a third. Every other color, purple, orange, brown, pink, is somewhere in between, a mix of those three primary responses. But the color space isn't actually three-dimensional. That's just the dimensionality accessible to your three types of cones. The true color space of possible subjective experiences could be four-dimensional, five-dimensional, or infinite dimensional. You're experiencing the three-dimensional cross-section of a higher dimensional space. Imagine being a two-dimensional creature living on a flat surface. You can move forward, backward, and left-right, but you have no concept of up or down. If someone told you there were directions you couldn't move in, you couldn't even imagine them. That's your relationship to colors with more than three dimensions of variance. In 2012, Jay Neitz at the University of Washington did something that sounds like mad science. He genetically engineered colorblind monkeys to give them human color vision. These squirrel monkeys were naturally dichromats. They had only two types of cones. Neitz added a third type using gene therapy, and the monkeys learned to see colors they'd never seen before. They passed tests distinguishing red from green. Their brains, which had evolved without the neural machinery for three-channel color vision, spontaneously reorganized to process the new information. They were experiencing colors that had never existed in their consciousness before. This proved something crucial. Color perception isn't hardwired from birth. A brain can learn to create new color experiences if given the right inputs. But here's the question that haunts neuroscientists. If we could add a fourth type of cone to your eyes, could your brain learn to see the fourth dimension of color? Would you experience entirely new colors? Or would your brain just map everything back onto your existing three-dimensional color space? We don't know. We genuinely don't know if human consciousness can expand to accommodate new dimensions of qualia. Some neuroscientists think we could learn to see new colors if we add new inputs. Others think the adult human brain is too rigid, too locked into its three-channel architecture. The space of possible colors might forever exceed the space of colors you can experience. And that brings us to the most disturbing possibility. What if there are colors your brain could create right now, but doesn't because you've never had the right stimulus? What if, hidden in your neural architecture, there are color experiences waiting to be unlocked? We need to step back now and confront something that's going to make your brain hurt: the philosophical problem of what it means for a color to exist. In 1974, philosopher Thomas Nagel wrote a paper called "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" It became one of the most important philosophy papers of the 20th century, and it asked a question that seemed simple. What does the world feel like from a bat's perspective? Bats navigate using echolocation. They emit high-frequency sounds and listen to the echoes to build a picture of their surroundings. But it's not really a picture, in any sense you can understand. They're experiencing soundless space in a way that has no equivalent in human consciousness. Nagel's point was this: no matter how much we learn about bat neuroscience, no matter how precisely we map the neural correlates of bat consciousness, we can never know what it's like to be a bat. The subjective experience, the qualia of echolocation, is fundamentally inaccessible to creatures without the right neural architecture. The same is true for color. You can never know what it's like to see ultraviolet. You can learn that UV light has wavelengths shorter than 380 nanometers. You can understand that it reflects off flowers in patterns that guide bees. You can map the neural response of a bee's UV-sensitive cones. But you cannot know the subjective experience of UV-ness. The quality of ultraviolet is forever beyond your reach. This isn't just about missing information. It's about missing categories of possible experience. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to explain the color red to an alien species that experiences the world entirely through sound. They have no visual system at all. You could describe wavelengths, photons, electromagnetic radiation. You could map out how human eyes work, how the visual cortex processes color. But none of that would communicate the experience of redness. The alien could understand everything about the physics and neuroscience of color vision and still have no idea what red feels like. That's your relationship to colors outside your perceptual range. You're the alien. The mantis shrimp is trying to explain its 16-dimensional color space to you, and all you can understand is the physics. The subjective experience remains alien. But here's where philosophy gets really wild. If subjective experiences are private and incommunicable, how do you know that what I call red feels the same to me as what you call red feels to you? This is called the inverted spectrum problem, and it's been debated by philosophers for centuries. Maybe when you look at something you call red, you have the subjective experience that I have when I look at something I call green. We've both been trained since childhood to call the same wavelengths by the same names, so we'd never discover the difference. Your red and my red could be completely different qualia, and we'd never know. You can't compare subjective experiences directly. You can only compare behaviors and neural correlates. If we both say that's red, and our brains show similar patterns of activity, we assume we're having the same experience. But that's an assumption. It might be wrong. This isn't just philosophical navel-gazing. In 2005, neuroscientist Bevel Conway at Harvard Medical School found that people's color preferences vary based on their ratio of L cones to M cones, the red and green receptors. People with more L cones tend to prefer warm colors like red and orange. People with more M cones prefer cool colors like blue and green. But here's the kicker. The ratio of L cones to M cones varies dramatically between individuals. Some people have 3 times as many L cones as M cones. Others have the reverse. Your entire color experience is shifted compared to other people's. The colors you call green involve more long wavelength response than the colors I call green. We use the same words, but we're experiencing different colors. Now extend this to creatures with completely different visual systems. When a mantis shrimp looks at a coral reef, it's not just seeing a more detailed version of what you see. It's having conscious experiences so alien to yours that the word seeing barely applies. It's like calling both human vision and dolphin echolocation sensing technically true, but missing the profound difference in subjective experience. And here's the really mind-bending part. The mantis shrimp probably doesn't realize that its experience is special. To the mantis shrimp, its 16-dimensional color space is just normal reality. It has no concept that you're wandering through life colorblind to most of the universe. Just as you have no concept, can have no concept of what you're missing. You don't know what you don't know. You can't miss experiences you've never had. The colors you're blind to don't feel like absences. They feel like nothing at all. And that's the most unsettling realization of all. There could be entire dimensions of reality that you're completely unaware of, not because you lack information, but because you lack the capacity for the relevant experiences. What else might you be missing? If color, something that feels so fundamental, so basic, is actually a narrow window into a much richer reality, what other windows are closed to you? What does the world really look like? Now we need to ask a crucial question. If there are all these colors to see, why don't you see them? Why did evolution give you only 3 types of cones instead of 16, like the mantis shrimp? The answer is going to teach you something profound about the trade-offs evolution makes and the constraints that shaped your consciousness itself. Let's start with deep history. About 300 million years ago, your reptilian ancestors had 4 types of cones. They were tetrachromats, living in a 4-dimensional color space. They could see ultraviolet. They experienced colors you can't imagine. Then something happened, the dinosaur age. For about 100 million years, your mammalian ancestors were small, nocturnal creatures hiding from dinosaurs. And in the dark, color vision isn't very useful. Its metabolically expensive color processing takes a lot of neural energy, and it provides little benefit when there's no light. So evolution made a choice. It stripped away 2 of your 4 cone types. Your ancient mammalian ancestors became dichromats with only 2 color channels. They lost ultraviolet vision. They lost a huge swath of the color space. But they gained better night vision, better motion detection, better sensitivity to dim light. They survived. This was discovered by Gerald Jacobs, a vision scientist at UC Santa Barbara, who spent decades studying the evolution of primate color vision. In papers published in the 1990s, he traced the evolutionary history and showed that most modern mammals, dogs, cats, horses, are still dichromats. They see roughly like a colorblind human, with only blue and yellow channels. But then, about 30 million years ago, something remarkable happened to the primate lineage. One of the 2 remaining cone genes duplicated, and the duplicate mutated to become sensitive to a different wavelength. Suddenly, primates had 3 cone types again. They regained a dimension of color vision. This is why you can see red. About 30 million years ago, a random genetic mutation in your primate ancestors' opsin genes allowed them to distinguish ripe red fruit from green leaves. That conferred such a survival advantage, finding ripe fruit in the forest, that the mutation spread through the population. Your 3-dimensional color vision exists because your ancestors needed to find berries. But evolution never restored the 4th cone type. You never got ultraviolet vision back. You're still missing an entire dimension of color that your reptilian ancestors once had. Why didn't evolution give you back the 4th cone? Or add a 5th? Why stop at 3? The answer lies in the trade-offs between color discrimination and spatial resolution. Your retina has limited space. Each photoreceptor cell takes up room. If you want higher resolution, the ability to see fine details, you need more photoreceptors per square millimeter. But if you want more types of cones, you need to divide that space between more types, which means fewer of each type. Birds often sacrifice spatial resolution for color diversity. Many birds have lower visual acuity than humans, but see more colors. They made a different evolutionary trade-off. For them, seeing the UV patterns on feathers and flowers is more important than seeing fine details. Humans made the opposite choice. We have incredibly high spatial acuity. Our fovea, the central part of our retina, has some of the highest resolution of any animal. But we have limited color diversity. 3 types of cones, not 16. Here's another constraint: neural processing. Your optic nerve contains about 1.2 million nerve fibers, carrying information from your retina to your brain. That's a limited bandwidth. Your visual system has to compress the information from 130 million photoreceptors down to fit through that narrow channel. Adding more types of cones means more information to process, more neural machinery required, more energy consumed. The human brain already uses about 20% of your body's energy, despite being only 2% of your body weight. Visual processing is expensive. The mantis shrimp can afford 16 types of photoreceptors because it processes color differently. Remember, it doesn't compare signals between cones. Each photoreceptor type recognizes wavelengths independently. That's simpler, requires less processing, but also provides less color discrimination within each channel. The mantis shrimp sees more colors, but it's worse at distinguishing similar shades within each color category. Humans made a different trade-off. Fewer color channels, but much more sophisticated processing. Your brain compares signals from your 3 cone types in complex ways, extracting information about edges, contrasts, color constancy. You can recognize the same object as red, whether it's in bright sunlight or dim indoor lighting. Your brain automatically compensates for the lighting conditions. That's computationally expensive, but incredibly useful. Evolution optimized your vision for the specific challenges your ancestors faced. Finding ripe fruit in a forest, recognizing faces across distances, tracking movement during hunts, reading subtle emotional expressions. For those tasks, trichromatic vision with high spatial resolution is perfect. But here's what's haunting. The colors you see aren't an objective representation of reality. They're an evolutionary solution to your ancestors' survival challenges. Other creatures, facing different challenges, evolved different solutions. Their colors are just as real as yours, maybe more real, since they capture more information about the world. You're not seeing objective reality. You're seeing an evolutionary interface designed to keep you alive. The colors you experience are tools, not truths. And the colors you don't experience? They're not missing from reality. They're just missing from your interface. So here's the million-dollar question. Can we fix this? Can technology give you the colors you're missing? The answer is going to blow your mind, because we're already doing it. In 2012, Neil Harbison became the first person officially recognized by a government as a cyborg. Harbison was born completely colorblind. He had achromatopsia, seeing only in grayscale. Then he had an antenna surgically implanted in his skull that converts colors into different sound frequencies. Now, Harbison doesn't see color in the traditional sense, but he experiences it. When he looks at red, he hears a specific tone. Blue is a different tone. Over time, his brain learned to associate those tones with colors, and he reports that the experience has become automatic. He no longer consciously translates sounds to colors. His brain simply knows that the tone means red. But here's where it gets interesting. Harbison's antenna can detect ultraviolet and infrared wavelengths that human eyes can't see. When he looks at a flower with UV patterns, he hears tones that correspond to those patterns. He's experiencing wavelengths outside the normal human visual range. Is he seeing ultraviolet? Not in the traditional sense, he's hearing it. But after years of training, his brain has created a new quality, a new subjective experience associated with UV wavelengths. He experiences something when he encounters UV light, and that experience didn't exist in human consciousness before. He's expanded the range of colors his consciousness can access, not by changing his eyes, but by changing his brain's inputs. And this opens up an incredible possibility. What if we could do the same thing with vision directly? In 2009, researchers at the University of California, Santa Barbara created electronic glasses that detect ultraviolet light and shift it into the visible spectrum. You put on the glasses, and suddenly you see UV patterns on flowers, UV markings on animals, UV reflections on surfaces. You're not seeing ultraviolet directly. The glasses are translating it into visible colors. You're accessing information that was invisible before. Similar technology exists for infrared. Thermal cameras translate heat into visible colors, letting you see the infrared radiation that warm objects emit. Soldiers use night vision goggles that amplify dim light and shift infrared into the visible spectrum. These technologies aren't creating new colors in the sense we've been discussing. They're mapping invisible wavelengths onto your existing color space. When you see a thermal image, you're seeing infrared radiation displayed as visible red and orange colors. You're not experiencing infraredness as a new color. You're experiencing infrared through the colors you already know. But what if we went further? What if, instead of translating new wavelengths into existing colors, we could add a fourth cone type to your eyes and let your brain create a genuinely new color? Remember Jay Neitz and his colorblind monkeys? He proved that the adult brain can learn to process new color channels. In 2019, Neitz proposed something radical, using gene therapy to add a fourth opsin type to human retinas, giving people tetrachromatic vision. The technical challenges are enormous. You'd need to deliver the new opsin gene to existing cone cells, which is difficult. You'd need to ensure the new cones wire correctly to the brain. You'd need the brain to learn to process the fourth channel, which might take years of training. But it's theoretically possible. And if it worked, you'd experience colors that don't exist in normal human consciousness. Not translated colors, not simulated colors, but genuinely new qualia. What would those colors feel like? We can't know until someone experiences them. But based on the tetrachromatic women like C-Day 29, we can guess. They'd feel as different from normal colors as red feels different from blue. They'd exist in a fourth dimension of color space that's perpendicular to all three dimensions you currently experience. Think about that for a moment. A direction of color that's perpendicular to the dimension from red to green, perpendicular to the dimension from blue to yellow, perpendicular to the dimension from dark to light. Your brain literally cannot imagine it because imagination is constrained by your existing neural architecture. You can't visualize what you've never experienced. But here's an even wilder possibility. Virtual reality and brain-computer interfaces might let us experience completely artificial colors that have no correspondence to any wavelength of light. In 2018, researchers at the University of Washington developed a brain-computer interface that could induce specific patterns of neural activity in the visual cortex of blind patients. They could make people see phosphenes, spots of light and color by directly stimulating their visual cortex. What if you could use that technology to create arbitrary patterns of activity in color processing regions? You could potentially create experiences of color that don't correspond to any combination of cone responses. Colors that exist only as pure neural patterns, with no connection to light or wavelengths or the physical world. Would those be real colors? Philosophically, absolutely. If color is subjective experience, qualia then any subjective experience of color is real, regardless of what caused it. A color experience through brain stimulation is just as real as a color experience through light entering your eyes. We could design impossible colors, colors that are simultaneously red and green, colors that exist in four-dimensional color space, even though your eyes only have three cone types. Colors that have never existed in any conscious experience anywhere in the universe. And here's the truly mind-bending possibility. We could potentially share those experiences. If we could record the neural pattern associated with a new color in one person's brain and replicate it in another person's brain, we could communicate qualia directly. You could know what it's like to be me. I could know what it's like to be you. The privacy of subjective experience could be breached. The technology isn't there yet, but nothing in physics or neuroscience says it's impossible. The colors you'll never experience naturally might become accessible through technology. The impossible might become possible. Now I want you to try something. Right now, close your eyes and try to imagine a completely new color. Not a shade of an existing color, not a mixture of colors, but a fundamentally new color that you've never seen before. You can't do it, can you? No matter how hard you try, everything you imagine is some combination of familiar colors. You might imagine a brighter red, or a greenish blue, or something shimmering and iridescent, but you're always working within the same color space. You cannot imagine outside the boundaries of your existing experience. This isn't a failure of creativity. It's a fundamental constraint of consciousness itself. Your imagination is built from memories. When you imagine a dog, you're recombining features from dogs you've seen. When you imagine a new song, you're arranging notes and rhythms you've heard. Imagination is recombination, not creation ex nihilo. You cannot imagine qualia you've never experienced. You can't imagine a new primary color any more than a person born blind can imagine the color red. The neural machinery required to generate that experience doesn't exist in your brain. In 2001, philosopher David Chalmers argued that consciousness involves something he calls the hard problem, explaining why physical processes in the brain give rise to subjective experiences at all. Even if we completely map the neural correlates of seeing red, every neuron, every synapse, every spike of electrical activity, we still haven't explained why that physical process feels like something. Why is there redness in consciousness? The hard problem applies to imagination too. Even if we could map the neural processes underlying imagining colors, we wouldn't explain why you can't imagine new ones. There's a gap between the physical processes and the subjective constraints on imagination. But here's what's fascinating. Some people can stretch the boundaries a bit further than others. People who've taken psychedelic drugs like LSD or psilocybin sometimes report experiencing impossible colors, colors that don't fit into normal color categories, colors that seem to have extra dimensions, colors that feel wrong in a profound way. They describe colors that are somehow both dark and bright simultaneously, or colors that seem to pulse with extra information, or colors that blend in ways that shouldn't work. These aren't new colors in the sense we've been discussing. They're caused by drugs disrupting the normal functioning of the visual cortex, creating unusual patterns of neural activity. But they hint at something important. The boundaries of your color space might be softer than they seem. Under the right conditions, your brain can create experiences that push against those boundaries. Neuroscientist Carl Friston at University College London has proposed that the brain works on a principle called predictive processing. Your brain constantly predicts what it's about to experience, and perception is the process of updating those predictions based on sensory input. Most of what you see is actually your brain's prediction, filled in with just enough sensory data to confirm or correct the prediction. This is why you can recognize objects from partial views. This is why optical illusions work. Your brain is predicting what's there and showing you the prediction, not the raw sensory data. But predictive processing can only predict experiences you've had before. Your brain can predict the color of an apple because it's seen apples. It can predict the color of a sunset because it's seen sunsets. But it cannot predict what ultraviolet looks like because it's never experienced ultraviolet. There's no prediction to make, no model to update. This is the deep reason you can't imagine new colors. Imagination is prediction without sensory input. You're running your brain's predictive models in the absence of external stimuli. But those models only contain experiences you've had. They cannot generate experiences outside your training data. Think of it like an AI trained on images of cats and dogs. No matter how sophisticated that AI is, it cannot generate an image of something fundamentally different from cats and dogs. It can create weird hybrids, strange combinations, mutated versions, but it's always working within the space defined by its training data. Your imagination works the same way, constrained by your experiential training data. And here's what's humbling. You don't even know what constraints you're under. A person born blind doesn't walk around thinking, I wonder what red is like. They can't conceptualize what they're missing because they lack the framework to understand it. Similarly, you don't walk around wondering what four-dimensional color space is like. You can understand the concept intellectually, but you can't visualize it, can't imagine it, can't wonder about it in any concrete way. The colors you're missing don't feel like missing colors. They feel like nothing. They're not dark spaces in your experience. They're not even spaces at all. They simply don't exist in your consciousness, and you have no mechanism to realize they're absent. This is perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the whole question. You are fundamentally, inescapably trapped inside your own perceptual framework. You cannot think outside it because your thinking is part of it. Your very conception of what color means is defined by the colors you can experience. If you were suddenly given tetrachromatic vision, if a fourth cone type were added to your eyes right now, you wouldn't immediately think, I see new colors. Your brain would struggle to make sense of the new inputs. It might take weeks or months or years for your neural networks to reorganize and for new color experiences to emerge. And even then, you might not recognize them as colors in the traditional sense. They might feel more like a new sense entirely, orthogonal to color vision as you know it. The boundaries of your consciousness are invisible from the inside. You can only see them from the outside by comparing yourself to other creatures, by realizing that they experience things you don't. And even then, you can't know what those experiences are like. You can only know that they exist. You are trapped in a three-dimensional color space, unable to escape, unable even to fully comprehend what escape would mean. Let's bring this home. Let's talk about what this means for you, personally, right now, watching this video. You woke up this morning and saw your bedroom in familiar colors. You looked in the mirror and saw your face. You walked outside and saw the sky. And every single one of those experiences was a simulation, a reconstruction, a narrow slice of reality filtered through three types of cone cells and interpreted by a brain that's never known anything different. The question isn't whether you're seeing reality correctly. You're not. The question is, how does knowing this change your relationship with your own experience? Here's my answer. It should fill you with humility and wonder. Every time you look at a flower now, you should think, I'm seeing a fraction of what's there. The bee visiting this flower is experiencing colors I can't imagine, navigating by patterns that are invisible to me. This flower isn't just beautiful, it's more beautiful than I can perceive. Its full beauty exists in a dimension of reality I don't have access to. Every time you see a sunset, you should think, this is my sunset, constructed by my brain from my limited inputs. Someone standing next to me might be experiencing slightly different colors because their cone ratios are different. A bird flying overhead is experiencing additional UV colors I'm completely blind to. This sunset isn't one thing. It's a different subjective experience for every creature that witnesses it. Every time you have an argument about whether a dress is blue or gold, you should think, we might literally be seeing different colors. Not because our eyes are better or worse, but because our brains are constructing different experiences from slightly different neural responses. What I call blue might be closer to what you call green. We'll never know because we can't compare qualia directly. This should change how you think about disagreements in general. If two people can look at the same dress and genuinely see different colors, not because they're lying or confused, but because their brains are constructing different conscious experiences, then how many other disagreements are rooted in different subjective experiences of shared reality? When you disagree with someone about politics or art, or whether a movie is good, you might be experiencing different qualia of those things. Not just having different opinions, but having fundamentally different subjective experiences that you're then trying to describe with shared language. The colors you see are private. Your experience of red is yours alone. I can never know what your red feels like, and you can never know what mine feels like. We're all trapped in private worlds of subjective experience, trying to communicate across an unbridgeable gap. But here's what's beautiful. We do communicate. Imperfectly, but genuinely. When I say red and you say red, we're coordinating our behaviors, even if our experiences are different. We've built a shared world language, culture, art, science on a foundation of private, incomparable experiences. Think about art. When Van Gogh painted Starry Night, he was trying to communicate his subjective experience of color and light. Every person who looks at that painting has a different subjective experience of the colors, but we all recognize something in it. We all feel something. Art works by exploiting the regularities in our private experiences, creating patterns that resonate even though the underlying qualia are private. Music is even more striking. Different people might hear the same melody completely differently. Research shows that absolute pitch, the ability to identify notes without reference, varies between individuals and cultures. But we still recognize beauty in music, still feel emotions from it, still share it across cultures and centuries. Your subjective experience is yours alone, but you're not alone in having subjective experiences. Every person you meet is wandering through their own private world of qualia, trying to connect with others across the gap. And now that you know about the colors you're missing, you should ask, what else am I missing? If my color experience is a narrow slice of the full spectrum, what other narrow slices am I trapped in? You're hearing frequencies between 20 and 20,000 hertz, missing the ultrasonic calls of bats and the infrasonic rumbles of elephants. You're smelling a tiny fraction of the chemical information that a dog's nose detects. You're tasting 5 basic tastes while some creatures taste dozens. You're sensing temperature, pressure, pain, but missing the electric fields that sharks detect and the magnetic fields that birds navigate by. Your entire experience of reality is a narrow, species-specific, evolutionarily contingent slice of what's actually there. You're walking through a universe richer and stranger than you can perceive, blind to most of it, experiencing only what your particular evolutionary history prepared you to experience. And here's the profound part. So is everyone else. So is every creature. There is no true experience of reality. There's only the specific interface that each type of consciousness has evolved. The mantis shrimp's 16-dimensional color space isn't truer than your 3-dimensional space. It's just different. The bat's echolocation isn't better than your vision. It's just different. Every creature is experiencing a different slice of reality, optimized for different purposes. You're not deficient for seeing only 3 dimensions of color. You're adapted. Your vision is perfect for the life you're living. But it's not complete. It's never complete. It never could be complete. And once you really internalize this, once you really feel it, it should change how you move through the world. With more humility, because you know you're not seeing the whole picture. With more wonder, because the whole picture is bigger and stranger than you imagined. With more curiosity, because there are always more dimensions to discover. The colors you'll never see are all around you, invisible, unimaginable, real. Let that blow your mind every single day. Now we need to go even deeper to the question underlying everything we've discussed. Why does seeing feel like anything at all? This is what philosopher David Chalmers calls the hard problem of consciousness, and it's the most profound question in all of science and philosophy. Why do physical processes, neurons firing, chemicals flowing, give rise to subjective experience? Why is there something it's like to be you? When light hits your retina and triggers a cascade of neural activity, why does that feel like seeing red? Why doesn't it just happen in the dark, unconsciously, like the electrical signals in your computer? Your computer processes visual information, but there's presumably nothing it's like to be your computer. There's no subjective experience happening there. But there's something it's like to be you. Why? This isn't just about color. It's about all conscious experience. Why does pain hurt? Why does music sound like something? Why does chocolate taste like something? Why is there a subjective, first-person dimension to your existence at all? Nobody knows. Genuinely, nobody knows. We can map the neural correlates of consciousness. We can identify which brain regions are active when you see red, when you feel pain, when you hear music. But mapping correlates doesn't explain causation. We haven't explained why those neural patterns generate subjective experience. Some philosophers, like Chalmers, think consciousness might be a fundamental feature of reality, like mass or charge. Just as electrons have mass and charge as basic properties, perhaps information processing systems have consciousness as a basic property. This view is called panpsychism, and it sounds crazy, but it's taken seriously by many researchers because we don't have a better explanation. Other philosophers, like Daniel Dennett, think the hard problem is an illusion. They argue that once we fully understand the neural mechanisms of perception, the mystery will dissolve. There's nothing more to explain than the physical processes themselves. Consciousness is what information processing feels like from the inside. But here's why our discussion of color matters to this deep mystery. Color is one of the clearest examples of consciousness doing something that seems irreducible to physical processes. The wavelength of light corresponding to red is about 700 nanometers. That's a physical fact. The neural response in your L cones and the subsequent activity in your visual cortex are physical facts. But the subjective experience of redness, the what it's like to see red, doesn't seem to be contained in any of those physical facts. You could know all the physics and neuroscience and still not know what red feels like if you'd never experienced it. This is called the knowledge argument, proposed by philosopher Frank Jackson in 1982. He asked you to imagine Mary, a neuroscientist who has spent her entire life in a black and white room. She has access to all physical information about color vision, every fact about wavelengths, cone cells, neural processing. She knows everything there is to know about the science of color. Then one day, Mary leaves the room and sees a red rose for the first time. Does she learn something new? Intuitively, yes. She learns what red looks like. She gains new knowledge of the subjective experience of redness. But that knowledge wasn't contained in all the physical facts she already knew. Therefore, there's something about consciousness, about qualia, that goes beyond physical facts. This argument is controversial. Some philosophers dispute it, but it captures something important. Subjective experience seems to have a special, irreducible character that's not obviously explained by physical processes. And colors you'll never see make this even more stark. You could learn all the physical facts about ultraviolet light. You could study the neural responses in bird brains when they see UV patterns. You could understand everything about the science. But you'd still never know what UV looks like to a bird. The subjective experience remains inaccessible. This suggests that consciousness might be fundamentally first person. There might be facts about the universe that can only be known through direct experience. They can never be communicated or learned through third-person scientific descriptions. If that's true, then the universe is stranger than we thought. It's not just made of matter and energy, following physical laws. It's also made of subjective experiences, private worlds of qualia that exist for creatures with the right kind of neural organization. And here's the really trippy part. If consciousness is tied to information processing, and if different types of information processing generate different types of consciousness, then the space of possible conscious experiences might be vast, perhaps infinite. Humans have one type of consciousness, shaped by our particular sensory systems and brain architecture. Mantis shrimp have a different type, shaped by their 16 types of photoreceptors. Bats have echolocation-based consciousness. Dolphins might have consciousness shaped by their complex social communication. Octopuses, with their distributed nervous systems, might have consciousness that's fundamentally different from vertebrate consciousness. And beyond animals, if consciousness is tied to information processing, maybe plants have some minimal form of it. Maybe ecosystems do. Maybe the internet does. Maybe the universe itself does. This is speculative, wildly speculative, but it follows from taking seriously the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of certain types of information processing. If so, then consciousness might be far more widespread and diverse than we imagine. And the colors you'll never see are just one example of this vast space of possible experiences. There might be types of consciousness so alien to yours that color doesn't even apply. Experiences that aren't visual, aren't auditory, aren't like any of your senses. but are nonetheless real and vivid for the creatures having them. You are one tiny point in an infinite space of possible consciousnesses, experiencing one narrow slice of reality through one particular evolutionary interface. And that's simultaneously humbling and exhilarating. Humbling because you're not special. Your experience isn't privileged. You're not seeing real reality any more than a bee or a bat or a mantis shrimp is. You're all seeing different slices, different interfaces. But exhilarating because it means reality is bigger than you can possibly imagine. The universe isn't just stars and galaxies and quantum fields. It's also billions of unique conscious perspectives, each one experiencing reality in their own way, each one irreducibly real and valuable. Every creature is the center of their own experiential universe. And somehow, all these private universes coexist, overlapping but never quite touching, each one complete unto itself. You are one such universe, and the colors you'll never see are a reminder that your universe, as vast as it seems from the inside, is just a tiny fragment of what's possible. So where does this leave us? If you're trapped in a three-dimensional color space, if entire dimensions of reality are closed off to you, what can you do about it? The answer is more than you might think. We're living at a unique moment in history when we might be able to transcend our evolutionary limitations. We've already talked about gene therapy potentially giving you tetrachromatic vision, about brain-computer interfaces potentially creating new qualia, about virtual reality potentially letting you experience impossible colors. But let's go further. Let's talk about the real future of consciousness expansion. In 2016, Elon Musk founded Neuralink with the stated goal of creating high-bandwidth brain-computer interfaces. The near-term goal is medical, helping paralyzed people control prosthetics, helping blind people see. But the long-term vision is much more ambitious. Augmenting normal human cognition with AI, expanding the bandwidth of human consciousness, potentially adding new senses and new modalities of experience. Imagine having a direct neural link to the internet, not looking at a screen, but experiencing information directly in your consciousness. What would that feel like? Would web pages appear as colors, as sounds, as entirely new qualia that don't fit any of your existing sensory categories? Or imagine adding a completely new sense, the ability to sense Wi-Fi signals or cosmic radiation or quantum entanglement. Your brain would have to create new subjective experiences to represent these inputs. New colors, if you will, in the space of possible experiences. This isn't science fiction. The technology is being developed right now. In 2015, neuroscientist David Eagleman created a vest that translates sound into vibrations on the skin, allowing deaf people to hear through touch. After weeks of training, users report that the experience becomes automatic. They don't consciously translate vibrations to sounds. They simply know what sounds are happening. The vest proves that the brain can learn to create new subjective experiences from new input channels. It can expand the space of your qualia. Now scale that up. Instead of a vest, imagine nanoscale sensors distributed throughout your body, in your blood, in your brain, providing information about your internal state at a level of detail you've never had. You could feel your immune system fighting off infections. You could sense the electrical activity in your neurons. You could experience your own metabolism as a new type of conscious awareness. Would those be new colors? Not literally, but metaphorically new dimensions of conscious experience, as vivid and real as color is now. Or go further. What if we could network consciousnesses? What if, through brain-to-brain interfaces, you could directly experience what someone else is experiencing? Not just their external sensations, but their internal qualia, their subjective experiences? In 2015, researchers at the University of Washington demonstrated direct brain-to-brain communication. One person would see a target on a screen and press a button. The signal was transmitted over the internet to a second person, whose hand would involuntarily move to press their button. It was crude, just a simple motor signal, but it proved that information could be transmitted directly between brains. Now imagine refining that technology. Instead of simple motor commands, imagine transmitting perceptual experiences. If I could induce the exact pattern of neural activity in your visual cortex that I experience when I see red, would you experience my red? Would you know what it's like to be me, at least in that moment? If so, we could potentially bridge the gap of private qualia. You could experience the world through someone else's eyes, literally. You could know what it's like to be a tetrachromate if one agreed to share her experience with you. You could experience colors you've never seen by downloading someone else's qualia. Or, and this is the really wild possibility, we could create new qualia collaboratively. Imagine two brains networked together, processing information jointly, creating experiences that neither brain could create alone. What would that feel like? Would you still be you, or would you be something new? A hybrid consciousness that's more than the sum of its parts. This is the frontier of consciousness expansion. Not just adding new inputs, but fundamentally restructuring the way consciousness works. And there's a darker possibility too. What if we could remove qualia? What if, through precise brain interventions, we could make you blind to certain colors, or deaf to certain sounds, or numb to certain pains? That sounds dystopian, but it might be therapeutic. Chronic pain patients might benefit from having their pain qualia reduced. People with PTSD might benefit from having traumatic memory qualia dampened. But it raises profound ethical questions. If consciousness can be modified, if qualia can be added or removed, what does it mean to be you? Is there a core self that persists through changes in consciousness, or are you just the sum total of your current qualia? This is the philosophical problem of personal identity, and it becomes urgent when we gain the technology to modify consciousness directly. If I add new qualia to your experience or remove existing ones, are you still the same person? Where's the boundary? We don't have answers yet, but we need to start thinking about these questions now, because the technology is coming faster than our philosophical framework can keep up. Within your lifetime, maybe within the next 20 years, we might have the ability to give people tetrachromatic vision, to add new sensory modalities, to network consciousnesses together. The colors you think you'll never see might become accessible. The dimensions of experience you think are closed might open up. And when that happens, it's not just about seeing more colors. It's about fundamentally expanding the boundaries of human consciousness itself. It's about creating new types of humans, or post-humans, with experiences richer and stranger than anything in the history of our species. We're on the verge of the greatest adventure in human history, the deliberate, conscious expansion of consciousness itself. And the colors you'll never see naturally are just the beginning of what might become possible. Let's step back now and think about what all of this means for your understanding of reality itself. You've learned that color is subjective, that different creatures see different colors, that the colors you experience are created by your brain rather than existing objectively in the world. But the implications go much deeper than you might realize. Consider this. If color isn't objective, what about other properties of objects? Is the table in front of you objectively hard, or is hardness just your brain's interpretation of electromagnetic forces between atoms? When you touch the table, you're not really touching it. Your atoms are repelling its atoms through electromagnetic forces. The sensation of hardness is your brain's way of representing that repulsion. Similarly, temperature isn't objective. What you call hot and cold are your brain's interpretations of molecular motion. A creature with different temperature sensors might experience the same object as having completely different thermal properties. In fact, most properties you think of as objective, color, temperature, hardness, taste, smell, are actually qualia, subjective experiences created by your brain to represent underlying physical processes. So what is objective? What's really out there? Physics tells us that the objective world consists of quantum fields, particles with properties like mass and charge governed by mathematical laws. But none of those mathematical descriptions include qualia. There's no redness in the equations of quantum electrodynamics. There's no hardness in the mathematical description of electromagnetic forces. This leads to a profound realization. The world of your everyday experience, the world of colors, sounds, tastes, textures, is not the objective world. It's a simulation created by your brain to represent the objective world in a useful way. Philosopher Donald Hoffman at UC Irvine has gone even further. He argues that your perceptions aren't even meant to represent objective reality accurately. Evolution doesn't select for truth, it selects for fitness. Your perceptions evolved to help you survive and reproduce, not to show you reality as it is. Think of it like a computer desktop. The icons on your desktop aren't literal representations of the electrical states in your computer's memory. They're a user interface designed to let you interact with your files without understanding the underlying code. Similarly, your perceptions are a user interface designed to let you interact with reality without understanding the underlying quantum fields. And just like different operating systems have different user interfaces for the same underlying data, different creatures have different perceptual interfaces for the same underlying reality. The mantis shrimp's 16-dimensional color space isn't a more accurate representation of reality than your 3-dimensional space. It's just a different interface, optimized for different tasks. This is called interface theory of perception, and it's deeply unsettling if you take it seriously. It means you've never seen reality as it is. You've only ever seen your brain's user interface. But here's what's even more unsettling. You can't escape the interface. You can't see reality as it is, because seeing itself is part of the interface. You can't think about reality as it is, because thinking is part of the interface. You are the interface. Your entire conscious experience is the interface? This raises a question philosophers have debated for millennia. Is there even a reality as it is, independent of all observers? Or is reality fundamentally observational, existing only in the interaction between conscious observers and whatever it is they're observing? Quantum mechanics hints that reality might be fundamentally observational. The famous double-slit experiment shows that particles behave differently when observed versus when unobserved. Quantum states are described as superpositions that collapse when measured. What does measurement mean? Does it require consciousness? Nobody knows. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, like the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation, suggest that consciousness plays a fundamental role in collapsing quantum superpositions, making reality definite. If so, then there's no reality independent of observation. Reality is created in the act of perception. This sounds mystical, but it's taken seriously by some physicists and philosophers. And it connects directly to our discussion of color. If reality is observational, then different observers literally create different realities. The mantis shrimp isn't just seeing more colors in an objective world. It's participating in the creation of a richer reality. You might object, but surely the electromagnetic spectrum is objective? The wavelengths of light exist whether or not anyone observes them. True, the electromagnetic waves exist objectively, but color, the subjective experience, doesn't exist until someone observes the light. And if observation creates reality, then colors come into existence in the act of seeing them. Before any conscious creature evolved, there was light, but there was no color. Color was created when evolution built eyes and brains that could experience it. This is what philosophers call emergentism, the idea that consciousness and qualia emerge from physical processes, but are ontologically distinct, adding something genuinely new to reality. And here's the implication. The colors you'll never see don't exist, not for you. They exist for the creatures that see them, but not in your reality. Your reality and a mantis shrimp's reality are different realities, overlapping but not identical. This might sound like solipsism, the idea that only your mind exists, but it's not. Other minds exist. Other realities exist. But they're all different, each one valid, each one real for the creature experiencing it. Reality is pluralistic, not singular. There's no God's eye view, no perspective from nowhere, no view from nowhere, as philosopher Thomas Nagel put it. There are only the views from somewhere, from the specific perspectives of specific conscious beings. And that means the question, what does reality really look like, has no answer. Reality doesn't look like anything in itself. It only looks like something from a particular perspective, through a particular interface. The colors you see are real for you. The colors you don't see are equally real for creatures that see them. Neither set of colors is more true than the other. They're all equally valid perspectives on the same underlying reality. This is simultaneously disorienting and liberating. Disorienting because it means you can never know what reality really is. Liberating because it means your perspective is as valid as any other. You're not failing to see true reality. You're seeing your reality, which is as real as any other. The colors you'll never see aren't missing from your experience because you're deficient. They're missing because they're not part of your reality, and that's okay. Your reality is complete and valid on its own terms. I want to pause here and acknowledge something. Everything we've discussed is kind of disturbing, isn't it? You started this video thinking you knew what color was. Now you've learned that color is subjective, that you're missing most colors, that reality itself might be plural and perspective dependent. That's a lot to process. You might be feeling something like vertigo, the sense that the ground has shifted beneath you, that nothing is quite as solid as you thought. That's normal. That's the appropriate response to having your foundational assumptions challenged. Let me share a personal reflection. When I first really understood this material, not just intellectually, but viscerally, I had a moment of profound disorientation. I looked at my hand and thought, this isn't my real hand. This is my brain's representation of electromagnetic repulsion forces. The pinkness of my skin isn't real. It's a quality my brain created. For a moment, everything felt less real. But then something shifted. I realized this quality, this subjective experience is just as real as anything else. More real, actually, because it's the only thing I have direct access to. I've never experienced reality as it is. I've only ever experienced my qualia. And my qualia are real. Imagine trying to discuss a painting with someone who sees UV colors in the painting that you can't see. They're having a richer experience, but they can't fully communicate it to you. You're both looking at the same physical object, but you're experiencing different artworks. Is that a problem? Maybe not. We already have different experiences, different emotional responses, different associations, different preferences. Adding perceptual differences might not be substantially different, but it might fragment human culture. If people with enhanced vision start creating art for each other, using colors the rest of us can't see, we'd have multiple visual cultures that can't fully communicate with each other. Third, consider informed consent. If we develop technologies to modify consciousness, how do we ensure people understand what they're consenting to? You can't know what tetrachromatic vision feels like until you have it. You can't know whether you'd prefer it to trichromatic vision. How can you make an informed choice about something you can't imagine? And what if the modification is irreversible? What if, once you have tetrachromatic vision, you can't go back? What if your brain reorganizes around the new inputs and removing them would cause psychological harm? These aren't just hypothetical questions. We face similar issues with cochlear implants for deaf people. Some deaf people see deafness not as a disability, but as a different way of experiencing the world, creating its own rich culture. Giving a deaf child cochlear implants can give them access to hearing culture, but it can also cut them off from deaf culture. Is being trichromatic a disability? Should it be fixed? Or is it just a different way of experiencing the world, equally valid as tetrachromatic vision? Fourth, consider unintended consequences. When we modify complex systems like the brain, we often get unexpected results. Adding a fourth color channel might not just add new colors, it might change other aspects of perception or cognition in ways we don't predict. The brain is an integrated system. Changing one part affects other parts. We need to be humble about our ability to predict outcomes. And fifth, most fundamentally, consider whether there are some experiences we shouldn't have. Most people would agree there are experiences we should avoid. Severe pain, intense fear, profound suffering. Could there be colors we shouldn't see? That sounds absurd. How could a color be harmful? But remember, colors are subjective experiences created by neural patterns. If we can create arbitrary neural patterns, we can create arbitrary experiences. Some patterns might be deeply disturbing, might conflict with your sense of reality, might be psychologically harmful. Remember the Stanford experiment where people saw impossible colors that seemed wrong, unsettling. What if we created colors that were worse colors that were profoundly disturbing, that violated your sense of perception so deeply that they caused psychological trauma? Or what if we created colors that were addictive, colors so beautiful, so compelling, that once you'd seen them, normal colors seemed drab and lifeless? You'd be trapped, always craving that experience, never satisfied with ordinary reality. These might sound like science fiction scenarios, but they're genuine risks when we start directly manipulating consciousness. We need to think about them now, before the technology makes them possible. So what should we do? My view is that we should proceed carefully, thoughtfully, with strong ethical guidelines and robust public debate. We should develop the technology. I think the potential benefits outweigh the risks, but we should be mindful of the ethical dimensions. We should ensure that enhanced perception is accessible to everyone who wants it, not just the wealthy. We should study the effects carefully before making irreversible modifications. We should get genuine informed consent from people who understand the trade-offs as well as possible. And we should preserve the option for people to experience the world in the traditional human way if they choose. The colors you'll never see are a frontier, but like all frontiers, they come with both opportunities and dangers. We need wisdom to navigate them. Before we conclude, I want to address something that might be on your mind. Does any of this have spiritual significance? Throughout human history, mystics and spiritual seekers have talked about transcending normal perception, seeing beyond the veil, experiencing higher dimensions of reality. They've described enlightenment as seeing the world as it truly is, freed from the limitations of ordinary consciousness. Is that what we're talking about here? Is tetrachromatic vision a form of enlightenment? Are the colors you'll never see spiritual colors? I don't think so, at least not in any traditional sense. The colors mantis shrimp see aren't higher than the colors you see. They're just different. They're adapted for different purposes. The mantis shrimp isn't more enlightened than you. It's just experiencing a different slice of reality. But I do think there's something spiritually significant in recognizing the limits of your perception. The humility of knowing you're not seeing the full picture. The awe of realizing reality is richer than you can experience. The wonder of knowing that other creatures are experiencing things you can't imagine. Many spiritual traditions emphasize transcending the ego, recognizing that your perspective isn't the only perspective, that your experience isn't all of reality. Learning about the colors you'll never see is a way of practicing that recognition. You're decentering yourself, acknowledging that you're one small viewpoint in a vast universe of viewpoints. And there's something deeply spiritual about recognizing the privacy and preciousness of conscious experience. Every creature is having experiences that are theirs alone, that can never be fully shared or communicated. There's a fundamental mystery at the heart of consciousness, the hard problem we discussed earlier. Why is there something it's like to be you? Why is there subjective experience at all? Science can tell us how color perception works, the wavelengths, the photoreceptors, the neural processing. But science can't tell us why it feels like something. Why redness has its particular redness. That remains mysterious, perhaps permanently so. And I think that mystery is sacred. Not sacred in the sense of belonging to any particular religion, but sacred in the sense of being fundamental, ineffable, beyond complete understanding. Consciousness is the one thing we know with absolute certainty. You know that you're conscious, and yet it's also the most mysterious thing. The colors you'll never see are a reminder of that mystery. They're a reminder that consciousness is vast and diverse and strange. They're a reminder that you're part of something larger than yourself, something you can't fully grasp. And there's a kind of beauty in that. Not the beauty of experiencing more, but the beauty of recognizing how much there is to experience. The beauty of humility and wonder. Some meditation traditions talk about deconstructing perceptual experience, seeing through the illusion of solid objects to the fluid processes underneath. When you meditate deeply on color, you can sometimes perceive it as less thing-like, more process-like. You notice how color shifts with attention, how it's constructed moment by your brain, how it's not as stable and objective as it seems. That's not the same as seeing new colors, but it's a way of experiencing the colors you do see more deeply, more directly, with more awareness of their constructed nature. And in some contemplative traditions, practitioners report experiencing colors during meditation that they describe as unlike any normal color. These are probably not new colors in the sense we've been discussing. They're probably unusual patterns of neural activity induced by meditation. But they suggest that consciousness has more flexibility than we normally experience, that the boundaries of perception can be pushed from the inside through mental training, not just from the outside through technology. Whether you call that spiritual or not is up to you. But I think there's value in the practice of paying attention to your perceptual experience, really noticing what it's like to see color, to hear sound, to feel textures. That attention itself is valuable, regardless of whether it leads to any special experiences. Because here's the thing, the colors you do see are miraculous. The fact that electromagnetic waves hitting your retina give rise to the subjective experience of redness, that's extraordinary. You experience it every day, so it feels ordinary, but it's not. It's one of the deepest mysteries in the universe. And you're part of that mystery. Your consciousness, your subjective experiences, your private world of qualia, that's all part of the great mystery of why there's something rather than nothing, why the universe gave rise to beings who experience it. The colors you'll never see remind you that the mystery is bigger than you. But the colors you do see remind you that you're part of the mystery, and that's worth contemplating. We've covered a lot of ground. Let's bring it all together now and make sense of what we've learned. We started with a simple question. Could there be colors humans will never experience? And the answer turned out to be complex and profound. Yes, there are colors you'll never experience, millions of them, existing in dimensions of color space you can't access. But more importantly, that fact reveals something deep about the nature of consciousness, perception, and reality itself. Here are the key insights we've explored. First, color is subjective. It's not a property of light or objects. It's a property of your consciousness, created by your brain from sensory inputs. The redness of red exists only in your mind. This applies to all qualia, all subjective experiences. Your entire perceptual world is constructed by your brain. Second, different creatures construct different perceptual worlds. Mantis shrimp see 16 dimensions of color. Bees see ultraviolet. Birds see UV patterns on feathers and flowers. Each creature is experiencing a different version of reality, all equally valid, all adapted for different purposes. Third, the colors you see are evolutionary compromises. You have 3 types of cones because your primate ancestors needed to distinguish ripe fruit from leaves. You lost ultraviolet vision because your mammalian ancestors were nocturnal and didn't need it. Your color vision is optimized for specific survival challenges, not for capturing all of reality. Fourth, you cannot imagine colors you've never seen. Imagination is constrained by experience. You can recombine elements from your existing color space, but you can't create genuinely new colors in your mind. The neural machinery to generate those experiences doesn't exist in your brain. Fifth, technology might let us transcend these limits. Gene therapy could add new photoreceptor types. Brain-computer interfaces could create new qualia. Virtual reality could generate impossible colors. We might be able to expand the boundaries of human consciousness deliberately. Sixth, this raises profound ethical questions. Should we enhance human perception? How do we ensure equality of access? How do we get informed consent from modifications to consciousness? What are the risks? We need to think carefully about these questions as the technology develops. Seventh, recognizing the limits of perception has spiritual significance. It cultivates humility, wonder, and appreciation for the diversity of conscious experience. It reminds you that reality is bigger than you can perceive, that other perspectives are valid, that consciousness is mysterious and precious. And eighth, most fundamentally, reality is perspectival. There's no God's eye view, no objective way things really look. There are only the many subjective perspectives of conscious beings, each one experiencing their own version of reality. Your version is real and valid, but it's not the only version. It's not even a complete version. It's a narrow, species-specific slice of an infinitely rich reality. Now, what does all this mean for you? How should you live differently knowing what you now know? I think it should make you more humble, more aware that your perception isn't objective reality, more willing to consider that others might be experiencing things differently, more curious about perspectives other than your own. It should make you more appreciative. The colors you do see are extraordinary. The fact that you're conscious at all is extraordinary. Don't take your experience for granted. Pay attention to it. Notice it, appreciate it. It should make you more compassionate. Every person you meet is experiencing their own private world of qualia, their own version of reality. They're not just different in opinion, they might be different in perception. Meet them with curiosity and empathy, and it should make you more open to possibility. The universe is stranger than you can currently perceive. There might be dimensions of reality, not just in color, but in every domain that are closed off to you now, but might become accessible. Stay curious. Stay open. The colors you'll never see are all around you. They're painting the flowers in your garden. They're decorating the birds in your sky. They're coloring the insects on your window. And you're blind to all of it. But that's okay. You're not meant to see everything. You're meant to see your slice of reality, to experience your version of the world. And your version is beautiful and valuable and real. The miracle isn't that you could see more colors. The miracle is that you see colors at all. The miracle is that there's something it's like to be you. The miracle is consciousness itself. And when you really let that sink in, when you really feel the mystery and wonder of conscious experience, the colors you can see become enough, more than enough. They become a gift, a window into the astonishing fact that the universe has organized itself into beings who can experience it. You are one such being, and that's extraordinary. So here we are, at the end of this journey. You've learned about the colors you'll never see. But more importantly, you've learned about the nature of color, perception, consciousness, and reality itself. You started this video thinking color was simply a property of objects, an objective feature of the world. Now you know it's not. Color is a subjective experience, constructed by your brain, different for every creature, missing entire dimensions that you'll never access. And that's not a depressing conclusion. It's an inspiring one, because it means you're part of an incredible diversity of conscious experiences. You're one perspective in an infinite spectrum of perspectives. The mantis shrimp with its 16 color channels, the bee with its UV vision, the bird with its tetrachromatic sight, and you with your 3 channels of color. You're all equally real, all equally valid, all experiencing different slices of the same underlying reality. The universe isn't just matter and energy following mathematical laws. It's also experience, consciousness, subjective awareness, and you're part of that. You're a window through which the universe experiences itself. The physicist Carl Sagan once said, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." When you see a sunset, the universe is seeing a sunset. When you experience the redness of a rose, the universe is experiencing redness. Your consciousness is the universe's consciousness. You're not separate from it. You're part of it. And yes, you're limited. Yes, there are colors you'll never see, experiences you'll never have, dimensions of reality you'll never access. But those limitations don't diminish your significance. They define your unique contribution to the totality of consciousness. Only you experience the world exactly as you do. When you see red, your experience of redness is unique in the universe. No one else, no other human, no other creature has exactly your subjective experience. You are irreplaceable. And when you die, your perspective dies with you. Your unique way of experiencing the world will be gone forever. That makes every moment precious. Every color you see, every experience you have, is rare and valuable and fleeting. So pay attention. Look at the colors around you right now. Really see them. Notice how red looks different in bright light versus dim light. Notice how blue seems to recede while yellow advances. Notice the subtle gradations, the unexpected combinations, the infinite variety within your narrow spectrum. And remember, you're not seeing all the colors. The bee sees more. The bird sees more. The mantis shrimp sees infinitely more. But that's okay. You're seeing your colors. And they're enough. Because the miracle isn't in seeing everything. The miracle is in seeing anything at all. The miracle is consciousness. The miracle is you. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Thank you for expanding your mind, for questioning your assumptions, for being willing to see, truly see, that reality is stranger and more wonderful than you imagined. The colors you'll never see are all around you, invisible, unimaginable, real. And the colors you can see are right in front of you, visible, vivid, precious. Both are true. Both are beautiful. Both are part of the great mystery of existence. And you are part of that mystery too. Now go look at a sunset. Really look at it. See the colors that are there, your colors. And know that they're just a fraction of what's there. And feel grateful for both the colors you see and the colors you don't. Because both remind you of the extraordinary fact that you're conscious, that you're experiencing, that you're alive. That's the real answer to our question. Could there be colors humans will never experience? Yes, millions of them. But the colors you can experience are miraculous enough. You are enough. Your consciousness is enough. Your slice of reality is enough. And that's the most beautiful color of all. If this video changed how you see the world, literally, see the world, hit that like button one more time. Subscribe for more reality-breaking content. And tell me in the comments, what's the first color you noticed differently after watching this? What are you seeing now that you weren't seeing before? Thanks for watching. Now go experience your colors. They're waiting for you.